This is Arkies in the Beltway, a look at national politics and the Arkansans influencing the discussions. I'm Alex Thomas, Washington correspondent for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, reporting from the nation's capital. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of February 11th, 2024. A long week on Capitol Hill for members in both chambers of Congress. Let's start in the House, where House Republicans came up short in their effort to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The secretary, accused of failing to enforce immigration and border security statutes, charges he has rejected. The House Republican Conference holds a slim majority in the chamber and could only afford 2 dissenting votes last Tuesday to impeach Mayorkas on 2 articles of impeachment. 4 Republicans joined Democrats, dooming the vote. Representative Steve Womack of Rogers speaking to reporters outside of the House chamber.
Why should we be surprised? I mean, this is the governing majority that's taken down rules. That never used to happen. We are kind of in our own way.
Womack and Arkansas's 3 other representatives voted for impeaching Mayorkas, the vote illustrating a lingering problem in the current House. The Republican majority has struggled to overcome its own political differences and infighting among members. Womack again speaking to reporters.
We behave sometimes like we're in the minority. In fact, a lot like we're in the minority. And I hope it's not a foretaste of what we're going to see, but we got a lot of other important things that are coming up, not the least of which is funding the government and, the 702 program. And, I mean, we can sit here and enumerate a lot of issues. But my gosh, we're talking about a governing majority that can't even pass a rule.
The House later failing to approve $17.6 billion in military aid to Israel. While a majority of members voted in favor of this legislation, the tally was 250 to 180. This was short of the 2/3 vote threshold needed to expedite the bill through the legislative process. All 4 of Arkansas's House members supported the legislation, despite President Joe Biden's promise to veto the bill if it gets to his desk. The Senate continuing its work from last week, senators discussing the best path forward on a $95.3 billion measure providing support to Ukraine, Israel, and partners in the Indo-Pacific. That proposal came after the Senate failed to move forward on a similar package with language on border security. Congressional Republicans have pushed for action addressing a rise in migrants illegally entering the United States. A bipartisan Senate group put forward language on items including asylum guidelines and shutting down the border under certain circumstances. But this text was met with hostility from some senators and House Republican leaders. Speaker Mike Johnson and other top House Republicans calling the bill dead on arrival in that chamber. Back in the Senate, Senators John Boozman of Rogers and Tom Cotton of Little Rock were among the Republicans who blocked moving forward with the border security and international aid package, Boozman wanting Senate leaders to allow the full body to consider amendments.
President Biden has shown by his actions that he's not interested in securing the border. So what we're trying to do is, from a legislative standpoint, making sure he has to secure the border.
The Senate voted Thursday to begin working on the proposal, saying language on the border. Boozman and Cotton voted against making this step, work on the package continuing through the weekend. One question on Capitol Hill: can Congress even pass legislation on immigration and border security? The House has passed more stringent policies unlikely to get approval in the Democratic-controlled House. Representative Rick Crawford of Jonesboro says any legislation has to put border security first.
The problem is not immigration right now, it's border security. And so we can't have good immigration policy with an open border. And so that means we have to control our border. And I think that's fair before we start having a conversation about immigration policy.
Crawford speaking to the Democrat-Gazette before the Mayorkas impeachment vote. Womack is not optimistic Congress can get this work done, given not just the current partisan makeup on Capitol Hill, but the year itself.
I'm not confident there will be anything done for the rest of this campaign season.
Boozman is more hopeful, saying both parties in both chambers understand the multiple pressing needs facing the United States.
We're working hard to make sure, in this particular case, that we get a good outcome representing the people in Arkansas, the people throughout the United States that are very, very concerned about border security. And then also, we live in a dangerous world, making sure that we do all we can to protect the United States.
House Republicans continued their call for action as senators worked in Washington. Representative Bruce Westerman of Hot Springs traveling to Arizona last Thursday for a House Natural Resources Committee hearing on how rising migrant numbers are affecting federal lands. A new report highlighting how proposed changes to the child tax credit could benefit families across the country, including those in Arkansas. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, a research institute based in Washington, D.C., releasing data showing around 16 million children in low-income families nationwide would benefit from possible enhancements in the first year of those changes alone. The changes through the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act, which would raise the refundable amount through 2025 tax returns and change the top-line credit amount with inflation. The center estimates 191,000 Arkansas children currently not eligible for the full child tax credit would benefit from these changes in year one. Stephanie Hinchin is a research analyst with the center. She highlights how the enhancements would benefit children across ethnicities and geographic areas.
Rural areas are more diverse than people often assume, and this expansion would help children of all races and ethnicities. Across the country, we're looking at nearly half of Black children living in rural areas who would benefit, compared to 35% of Black children living in metro areas, 37% of American Indian or Alaska Native children in rural areas benefiting, compared to 28% in metro areas.
Peter Guest with Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families says research shows Arkansas families benefited from past expansions of the child tax credit.
We have good evidence from what we did previously under the American Rescue Plan, and that child tax credit improvement there, that expansion, really did make a difference.
All four of Arkansas's House members supported the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act in a January 31st vote. The pathway for passage is not clear in the Senate, where the Senate Finance Committee is working through timing on considering the bill and discussions regarding the possible effects on the deficit. Neither Senator Bozeman or Senator Cotton serve on that committee. Miss America spending some time on Capitol Hill. Madison Marsh making a stop just weeks after being crowned Miss America. The Fort Smith native entered the Miss America competition as Miss Colorado. She lived in the Colorado Springs area as a cadet at the U.S Air Force Academy when she began her pursuit for the crown. Part of her trip to the Capitol involved meeting with lawmakers to discuss the importance of pancreatic cancer research. Marsh and her family have been vocal in raising awareness following the death of her mother, Whitney Marsh, in November 2018. One thing that Congress can do, according to Madison Marsh, is change how the federal government treats pancreatic cancer screenings.
One of the things that they had done for breast cancer under the Affordable Care Act is ensuring that insurers provide some of the screening for high-risk patients or just any female patients. Pancreatic cancer is now showing that early detection is how you save lives, but it's expensive. They're having to battle with insurance companies, and so that period of several weeks in between when you need a scan and when insurance might actually clear you could be life or death for a patient.
Representative Womack joining Marsh for some of her time in the nation's capital. Womack nominated Marsh to the Air Force Academy when she was a student at Fort Smith Southside High School. And that'll do it for this edition of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of February 11th, 2024. You can stay up to date with all news involving Arkansas at arkansasonline.com. You can get in touch with me on social media. My handle is at AlexHouseThomas. I'm Alex Thomas, and this has been Arkies in the Beltway. Thanks for listening.